Hello, it's Mark from Hero Tech Systems, and you are welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. In this video, we are going to discuss inter-VLAN routing. We're going to look at how we can configure inter-VLAN routing on a Cisco router and multiple VLAN dynamic IP address assignment with DHCP relay. This is lesson 10 of the Cisco packet tracer tutorial for beginners. So without further ado, let's go right into the Cisco packet tracer interface and do the configuration. So you're welcome to the Cisco packet tracer interface. We've already got this little topology set up. If you do not know how we got to this point, this is your first time watching the lecture series, the link to the previous lessons, to the previous videos are in the description below. You can watch to follow along. And if you're new to networking, you want to understand networking technologies, I have a guide, a summarized guide that teaches network technologies in a very summarized fashion. The link to that guide is in the description below as well. So we have two LAN segments, and we assigned in the last video we left the IT department in VLAN 1, and then we assigned the sales department to VLAN 2. So in this video, we're going to be configuring inter-VLAN routing. So to do that, we're just going to go into the router. We're going to go into the router and configure sub interfaces. So we'll be using router on a stick to do the inter-VLAN routing. So yeah, so here we go. I'm going to do show IP interface brief. So I have gigabit Ethernet 0/0 having a physical an IP address of 10.0.0.1. so this physical interface has this IP address. So when you're configuring router on a stick, the physical interface does not have an IP address. So we're going to remove that IP address. So interface gigabit 0/0, no IP address. So for the two VLANs that we have on a network, we're going to create two sub interfaces, and we're going to tie those sub interfaces to these separate VLANs. So to do that, we're going to say interface gigabit 0/0.1. I always like to use the number that identifies the number of the VLAN. So I have VLAN 1 and VLAN 2. So sub interface gigabit 0/0.1 is used to identify VLAN 1. So to tie VLAN 1 to this interface, I'm going to use this command encapsulation.1q. So the VLAN number is 1. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to give it an IP address. So for my VLAN 1 network, I'm just going to give it this IP address of 10.0.0.1 255.0.0.0. Now remember that our DHCP service is running on a DHCP server. So what we want to do is point the VLAN to the DHCP server to pick up an IP address. So to do that, we're going to point it to the DHCP server IP address. So with this command IP helper address, the DHCP server address is 10.0.0.10. So we'll do the same thing for the other sub interface, which is 2, encapsulation.1q2. We'll give it an IP address. We're creating a pool of 20.0.0.0. So for the gateway, we're giving it 20.0.0.1 255.0.0.0. So the next thing we need to do is to point it to, so use the up arrow key to see your previous command, and we'll point it to the server to get an IP address. So that's that for that. Now after doing that, we're going to go to the server and we're going to configure a pool for the server. Remember, so we'll go to JCP. So we're going to create a new pool. That's for the VLAN 2 pool. VLAN 1 is already using this. VLAN 1 is going to use this pool we created before, the 10.0.0 network. So we're going to say sales. So let me put that in caps lock, sales. So the gateway is 20.0.0.1. We're going to start the start IP address. We leave the DNS server as it is, 20.0.0.11. We leave the maximum number of users as 256, and then we can add. So I have sales here, so I save it. So after doing that, the next thing I need to do is I need to trunk. Remember, we trunked this link in the link between the two switches in the last video. We trunked it. Now the next thing we need to trunk is the link between this should I say the first switch, the switch that connects to the router. That link we need to connect. We need to trunk it. So this switch connects to the router on ports F0/6. So we need to make that link a trunk link. So enable config interface F0/6 switchport mode trunk. Now the reason why we are trunking this link is so that the link can carry information for both VLAN 1 and VLAN 2. Access link carry information for one VLAN, and trunk links carry information for multiple VLANs. So for this link to be able to carry multiple VLAN information, we need to make it a trunk link. Now after doing that, the next thing we need to do is to also create the VLAN in this switch. If we don't create the VLAN in this switch, it will not work. So we'll come in here and create VLAN 2. So the VLAN we created in the sales department switch, we need to also create it here. If not, it would not work. So VLAN 2, we name it sales. Now after doing that, you can now test connectivity. So let's go into this device and see whether it's going to pick IP address from the pool that we created for it. Say that you're going to pick IP address from the pool. Let's broadcast again. Good, it has picked an IP address 20.0.0.11 from the sales pool. So you can see how that is done. So we'll do this for this device. Beautiful. It's picking IP address from the sales pool which we created on the server. So let's see for this one. So for the access points, we're going to allow it pick an IP address from, yes, so it's picking an IP address. So let's come here. It has picked 20.15. So remember that we gave this controller a static IP address. So let's change it because the static IP address is on the VLAN 1 network. So since it's on VLAN 2 network now, we need to change it 20.0.0.2, 20.0.0.1. Okay. So now for this guy, we're going to point it to 20.0.0.2 so we can connect. .0.2. So let's rebroadcast for DHCP. Beautiful. You can see it has received 20.0.0.16 from the DHCP server. So that is how to create inter-VLAN routing and how to assign dynamic IP address to multiple VLANs from a DHCP server. So if you have found this video very useful, please do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so that whenever we upload new content, you will be notified. Thank you for watching.